I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Growing marijuana in my yard. Got a little pot to pipe spread out all over the lot 'cause I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Well, I got the seed from Mexico. Stick it in some dirt and let it grow. Put it in my garden with my peppers and my peas, and I get all the smoke I need free. 'Cause I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Growing marijuana in my yard. Keep it where no one can see, so let's keep this between you and me. But I'm growing marijuana in my yard. I'm growing marijuana in my yard. I can't tell my boss or I'll get fired. I don't grow much, just what I use. Work all day, and when I'm through, I smoke some marijuana from my yard. Now the policeman wants to talk to me. He says, how you gonna smoke up all that weed? He says, money's what you're in it for. Don't you know we're in a war? I'm gonna haul your ass downtown, please. I said, hey man, what is it to you? How do I infringe on what you do? Well, I beg your pardon if you're offended by my garden. I just can't grow Prozac in my yard. So I grow my own medicine in my yard. I give some to my neighbor for his heart. Share it with my grandma, keeps it from her son. 'Cause we all know that stuff's against the law. Now there's nothing growing in my yard. 'Cause cops call my land and both my cars. Now I have to buy my pot from a teenager in a parking lot who's growing marijuana in his yard. Oh, everyone's growing in their yard. They like to show you how it ain't hard. Never mind the president, let's overgrow the government and all grow marijuana in our yard. Let's grow some marijuana.
Hey, here we are again doing another episode of Pot Talk. And once again, we want to remind you, too many of our brothers and sisters are sitting in jail for marijuana when the rich fat cats now have licenses that can sell marijuana as much as they want and not go to jail because they have political connections and lots of money. This shows that we have a two-tier system in America. The rich and powerful, they can do anything they want, and the rest of us that get screwed and sent to jail. Now that I've made that point, all you people run out and vote for those clowns. You know, wave your flag, wave it high, say how free you think we are, you know. Anyway, Paula wants to read some stuff.
Okay, can you hear me? We were just reading about the Woodstock TV studio getting back up again, and you know, I've written to the Woodstock Times, and I've talked about it on numerous occasions, and as Joe says, for 3 years we've pleaded before the board. And this is a letter that we got from the producers saying that it's now open for all types of programming. There's going to be a Roland V4EX machine in there that's supposed to be better. And then
it's better junk, folks.
And then it says, here's one interesting sentence from Rich Spool. In the near future, you will be able to make a digital file of your program for quick editing and YouTube use. And then he goes, because of the Ustream commercials, we are suspending the streaming until a solution can be found. Well, this is a really big deal. Now, I had written an email to Jesse Jones, and to protect myself, I CC'd it to Brian Hollander, to Rich Spool, because I don't want him out of the loop, and to Rick Siegel, who's an expert overseas whom we trust a lot. And I said, "Hi, Jesse. Right now, Joe, Jay, and I are watching the ceremonies from the ashram in which I spent 4 years. I was there during 9/11, and I gave the Ustream to it. As you can see from this stream, which Rich Spool indicated we would be on again, the commercials are very disruptive. Joe would like to talk to you about seeing if you can deliver a stream that is non-commercial, since public access is commercial-free on cable and should be on the World Wide Web. In the past, when we were on the web, in the middle of our show, a commercial would come on, which would disrupt the point that we were trying to make, and in most cases, the commercials seemed to be timed during the high point of our shows, blotting out the power of our message. Same thing in this ashram stream. It was blotting out really beautiful mantras. Joe has talked with other producers, and they all agree on this point. So if you truly want to be of assistance, and you are not just talk, deliver for the producers a non-commercial site on the World Wide Web. And good luck dealing with Rich Spool. We're not talking behind Rich's back. I've CC'd him. Who doesn't consult with any of the producers when he sets up equipment. When Rich set up the studio, he didn't ask any producers where would be the easiest place for equipment to be located so that it would be user-friendly. In Joe's opinion, Rick believes his technical skills are so advanced that he doesn't have to ask any of the producers what they would like, nor does he care, Joe and Paula. Now, then I wrote to Rick Siegel to ask him about how do we set up something. He goes, about broadcasting.
Wait, let me just jump in. Now, Rick had
Siegel.
Rick Siegel had this equipment and was broadcasting and really is probably a real authority on this. I would like to go ahead, but
okay.
Now read it.
Don't take the wind out of it because he's setting it up nice. About broadcasting, well, OnlineTV.com was doing what you wanted from 1996 to 2002 when I stopped doing it. I could not afford it anymore. It was $500 a month short of being in the black, but I did not have $500 anymore per month to keep it live. In 2001, I was able to do live broadcast using line-of-sight uplinks to the Twin Towers and putting it out over the Internet. The thing is, the server is important, not the broadcast point. All you need to broadcast is software, computer, and an Internet connection of at least 300 kbs. The server needs whatever it needs. That means it needs enough to feed as many viewers as it has. I had 45 T1 lines and could accommodate huge audiences. I sold memberships at $3.95 a month, all-you-can-eat concerts every night. As you may or may not know or remember, I had bad PTSD from 9/11. Besides that, my investors went down with the towers. The $10 million business plan went too, because the, quote, internet bubble, end quote, burst. I left and never came back. While I was thinking that the time is finally here for what I was already doing, I am just not so happy to think about suiting up for a bull like this. So for a broadcast, until you do not need much. So for a broadcast unit, you do not need much. It is the hosting and server that is important for getting the signal out to the consumer. And then I answered again, Dear Rick, in reference to what you say below, what do we need as far as a server so our message can go viral and non-commercial? If we can get the 300 kb uplink, right? How do we get unlimited bandwidth, which should be a right for public access, where the little guy can be free of interference from the big corporations? Can we get a powerful computer that can act as a server, or do we need some special equipment? Could you send us a list of what exactly we would need to pull this off? Okay, then he answers, and, okay, hi Joe, love your shows. I think it is a bit more complicated than you understand at the moment. Keep this for reference. You have to break down the flow of data, which in this case is video-audio broadcast. First, we have to get a signal out. That can be remote or local, but a connection must be made to a computer that will probably relate to a central broadcast server, camera or DVD, whatever, to a computer that encodes for broadcast. At the same time, you should record locally on that computer for archive. So the computer should be strong. If you use a laptop, there's a good chance it will not keep up with record to disk and sending out to the central computer. Now, central computer. Something has to catch it and forward it on. Will it be hooked to the 100M backbone? Will it serve direct to users? That would be your audience. How many streams would you expect? This is the big money issue, bandwidth. It costs. That is why sites like Netflix and the providers fight over those costs. The computers to do this are not costly. It is make the part that goes to the end user. You can stream in with a signal, and that is not so costly. What is costly is sending that out again to many. That means powerful computers with large bandwidth. I had my servers on site at the clubs to do live stuff. They took in the feed from the camera, encoded, saved, and sent the live data to bigger servers on the main trunk feed. I had 100M, and it could serve 1,000 high-quality streams simultaneous, so up to 10,000 could watch reasonably. I had that daily. You have to rent out rack space at the hubs, and if you are lucky, you can get on without meter rates and just pay the big package. At the time, it was $1,400 a month for unmetered connection. But back then, in capitals, no one was doing this. They had no idea what I was doing. In a bright new day, you would get the server at the community center and have them give you the connectivity free. Of course, free is used loosely, as it is a cost that will be borne by someone or everyone in the end. I was of the impression that Paula was using her 501c3 to get funding for such adventures? ? No, I let it go, but... So, my friend, think about which parts of the program you want your energy into. All of it can be done or part of it. If you want to rid commercials, then someone has to fund that bandwidth, or you are forced into the big boys' commercial-laden gumba. Computers and software are easy. Bandwidth, the last frontier. Unless you have corporate sponsors, 501c3 sponsorship, or community funding, that last part cannot be done. But great music is easy to find and plenty of stoners. I have some amazing bud growing now. Seeds should be around in a month or so. This guy is living offshore. And he goes on in Spain, and he I don't know, should I talk about this since this is Pot Talk? He talks about
it's legal there.
It's legal where he is. He goes, I got an argument with someone about KIF, K-I-F. I was in Morocco when everything was legal. I left the week after they outlawed it. He leaves whenever they outlaw, The word KIF is Moroccan. To make KIF, they would take the flowers and chop them up fine on a wooden board. Skimmy the leaf off. They liked the bracts filled with trichome. Then they chopped up black tobacco. I think for them it grows wild. Mixing the two into a fine mix. Then with their Sipsy mine tool, smoke it. Great hit. Well, it seems today KIF is hash in the mass media world. They now say KIF is what we might have known as pollen hash unpressed. They say it is just the trichomes that fall into the bottom part of a 3-part grinder. I argued that trichomes, those great white crystals, are the THC filled glands we called hashish, not KIF. Well, search on the internet and all the top listings for KIF show they are the trichomes that drop to the bottom of grinders. No more about KIF from the riff. Words used to have meanings, and I think losing the history of this word and allowing people to think they have KIF instead of pollen hash, well, off we go. Best to you. So he's all about protecting legacy. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Who we were, talking to about this issue with the
Trying to get
the TV studio. Do you have any comments, Randy? On
Well, only what I'm led to believe is that I'm pretty upset about the way the new TV studio at the community center is set up, because it really is the old TV studio. There is not even a full wall of green screen. The green screen area is exactly the same size as it was in the other more narrow room, and the rest of the wall is just left white. The reason for that is because I believe it's the same kind of charcoal curtain that they pull over it. And originally, when we were talking with them, we were thinking it would be nice to have a slightly curved rod that would have a curtain on it, so that you could have kind of a little bit of a surround effect, so you can do different camera angles. That never happened.
You had a drawing.
Say again?
You had a drawing, as I remember.
Well, I had a drawing of
they asked you to help.
Of what the table, what the equipment table would look like, and now instead of in the old studio we used to have kind of a horseshoe shape. That's very standard in radio and TV operations. We have a horseshoe here, and it is now no longer a horseshoe. It could best be described as an equipment bench, where you can't possibly reach from one side to the other. If I were to say do the show the way I used to do it, the way a number of producers did, sitting in front of the audio board and then maybe having another tech. In our case, if I were to do that from there, everybody would see Felicia walking back and forth all the time, because the content computer where you import material from the internet, that's on one side. Then you've got the TriCaster, which is the computer you have to try to control to either do production, or this little board on the new one, the Roland Davy, whatever it is. It's all the way over on the other side, and it's just not set up right, and it could have been done so much better, as Joe said, if Rich had consulted on it. Because, before this radio station, when I used to say, I know design, everybody could say, oh yeah, everybody knows design. Well, this radio station has been on the air for a year and a half. None of the equipment has failed. It's never missed a beat. And we've worked out any little bugs that might have been in it at the beginning, which were very minor. Everything's been turnkey. And yet we never get consulted on anything like that. And now they've got something that all of the producers are going to be complaining about for the rest of time, unless they kind of redo the whole thing. It's very disappointing.
Yeah. And, I said to Rich, Rich, you worked on all this equipment without consulting with one producer, and the way...
Or at least that we know of.
Oh, we got a call. 104.
At least that we know of. I mean,
Do you want to go on the air?
just to give a little space.
Hold on.
Oh, maybe that's a producer that was consulted.
I don't know if it is.
It would be great. We...
Oh, wait a minute. I got
We
it
like different opinions. That's how you develop a greater understanding.
Still there?
Nobody likes to speak in a vacuum. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, hi, Paula.
Hey, hi.
Hey, thanks so much for letting me have a voice here, Brandy and you guys. It's just so great, this little bastion of free speech here that we have. And, I'm usually not someone who speaks out, but you all inspire me. It's so great.
Oh, can you hear her better than I can? Is this Barbara?
No. I like to say I'm the mystery caller. But,
Oh, okay, okay.
But anyway, what I wanted to say is, Paula, first of all...
Oh, let me just quickly interrupt you. We met a most wonderful person at the laundromat yesterday, and I just told her to listen. Right. And she was from Gaston's Farm in Tennessee. Did you know about that place, mystery caller?
I do.
Well,
what's her name? Gaston, the midwife.
Yes, and Joe delivered 5 of his children using their methods. Right?
I'd have made Gaston. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have had
Of course.
I wouldn't have known how to deliver babies, and
of course.
I wouldn't have 5 kids right now.
She's an icon.
But I bring this up, mystery caller, because I think I have an idea who you are and you're savvy. Right now, Gaston Farms has a $10 million lawsuit against it, and unless they cough up all the intellectual property rights on a film that many people contributed to. Is that not outrageous?
Well, I'm sorry. Someone has their intellectual property without
Okay.
legal.
One of the people was doing a documentary, but a whole lot of other people had done film and stuff, and they contributed to that documentary. Now the person who
put it together, who produced it?
Yeah.
One of the people that was involved with the farm.
Yeah.
Wants to try to control it all and wants to have all the rights and wants the other people who contributed to give up all their rights, and if they don't, he's going to sue the farm for $10 million and try to take the land away from them. It's bad. It's real bad news and real bad energy on the part of this person.
But the lady that was listening to us in the laundromat, she was so quick and bright. She picked up on subtle points about foreclosure and bank fraud, and you could just. I hope she can get the signal tonight. Do you go out to Marbletown, Randy? Do you reach that far? Stone Ridge?
We reached Stone Ridge.
Stone Ridge. Well, maybe.
I don't know if we make it all the way to Marble.
Okay. Well, anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you, mystery caller. I was just brimming with enthusiasm.
No, that's important, and you can interrupt me anytime, Paula.
What was the point you wanted to make since you called?
Well, I just wanted to say that, the heck with the technicalities, the heck with the politics. You guys have another voice now with the TV station back on, whatever it is. I'm grateful. I can hear the TV station better than I can hear the radio. I'm lucky the radio's not so great. I have to really struggle sometimes to get it in on the radio, so I'm for one, grateful I can hear it on the TV. So whatever it is, it gives you another voice. That's what's important.
No, but the problem is we can't produce shows from there. We could still keep going like we've been doing, make DVDs other places, and then play them on the carousel, but it leaves the studio unable to be used by the producers.
You can't do live shows, is that it? The technicalities are way over my head. I have no understanding of that at all.
Well, we got to bring ourselves up to speed and learn. That's why I read that technical stuff.
Yeah, and Paula, I mean, kudos to you. You're the one who's gotten this back on. You've made so much progress. To me, that's what's important.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes one
the
wonders.
Progress that you've made and built on that. And I understand, Randy, how you feel, and you want everything perfect and up to your high standard. But it comes
not
off
just
as,
Randy. We all do.
You too, but it comes off as bemoaning sometimes. And this empowers you because it still gives you another medium to get the word out.
No.
So that's just how I see it.
Oh no, can I stay with me on this, because Randy and Joe are more in agreement. I flip flop. When I'm with Joe, I want to boycott the place. When I'm with Ellen and Rich, I kind of see their point of view, although their point of view is strictly cable. They can't get out of the box. See, cable is dying, and what's going to happen is if you get 3,000 people on cable today, how do you know that tomorrow they're not going to divide them into 3 major categories and figure out who's a newcomer in Woodstock?
Look what they're doing to Gary Noah. It's unbelievable. What possible rationale could there be for, if my understanding is correct, he was fired for...
I don't know anything about Gary Noel.
Well, wasn't his show taken off?
No, he was. He's been saying that he's been fired, but what he's actually saying is he's been fired from his Friday program. In other words, they took him off on BAI on Friday, but he's still there.
Oh, okay. And look how accommodating he was. He was making all kinds of excuses for the station. Oh, they have to do this. They have their own reasons for it.
Well, the nicer you are, the more you get kicked in the ass. That's just the way things are.
Yeah. And I'm in agreement. I think he was a bit wimpy. I think he should have called a spade,
Yeah. Well, that's,
We have that trouble with a lot of producers down at M&N down in New York City. we took a stand against the management down there, but there were so many producers who were in a similar situation as us, but they dare not speak out because they're afraid of losing their show.
Jim Chaddock still have some part in that station?
No. Jim Kloddick used to own Metro Access Studios.
I was there in those days.
No, actually, MNN took away a lot of his cable business when they built their new studios further uptown. And Jim Kloddick, who was a old friend of mine, built a bunch of low-power TV stations around New York and started selling time the way those stations tend to do. So I don't think he has anything to do with public access or Manhattan Neighborhood Network.
Because I wonder what happened to a lot of that original material. Like I was thinking, Sensimilla Tips in the days of Coca Crystal, her show. There was another show, Sensimilla.
You're right, caller.
There was another show, Mary Hartman, a play on Mary Hartman. It was hysterical. Do you remember that, Randy?
I don't remember. I remember something about a play about Mary Hartman, like a satire.
I wonder who owns the rights to that stuff, if it's public domain.
But I remember TV Party, and there, of course, Coca Crystal, and there were a whole bunch of other shows that used to come out of Metro Access.
Yeah, and they were forerunners, in
yes.
that idiom there.
Are you on the internet, caller?
Pardon?
Are you on the internet?
I rarely do, Paula, because
Okay.
it's just between, getting through life.
I was just going to tell you,
we
we just produced some of our best work. Joe comments on the State Justice Institute, which is 52 Supreme Court judges from around the country gathering and plotting ways to obstruct non-lawyers, pro se people, targeted groups like sovereigns, militiamen, freedmen, from getting their cases up into the higher courts. And Joe did such a good job on it. I'm so proud of it. And we're going to be getting a call in a few minutes from Rod Class's brother. And he was the one that sent us this DVD. It was obviously smuggled from 1996. And you can see some of the people that were infiltrating, how guilty and ashamed they are. But of course they persist on with their evil agenda. And in 1996, the way they're talking, here we are 2016, and it's just so obvious that the courts are not giving remedy. We have to understand the difference between a commercial court and a court where we can really expect to restore the peace and not put an undue burden on law enforcement to shore up the shortcomings of short-sighted judges, or perhaps even frightened judges, because in a way it's almost like some kind of federal hit team. It's a federally funded conference telling them that it's just a matter of time before the chemistry's right, before they'll be hung on a town bridge. One judge is saying, how can they be hung on a town bridge when the government put that up? But you can see their little brain clicking because they're taking this seriously and wondering for ways out. Like, in other words, if you are a municipal government and you build a bridge, maybe you can make a claim that the people can't use it for lynching. But, the point is, they're grasping at straws, and I think we shouldn't be disheartened that we're not being effective. Joe and I say time and time again, we are for law and order. We are for police who follow their oath of office. We are for judges who go by due process. We don't believe in violence, but we do believe that judges who do not give due process, how did you say it, are fomenting rebellion.
Right, fomenting rebellion.
Well, but your idealism is heroic. What can I say?
Well, it's because of callers like you. It keeps us going.
I'm so glad.
Thank you.
So anyway, I will let you receive that call.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Good
night. Bye. Oh, well, I hope this reaches Marbletown. Hello, Barbara, if you're out there, because Gaston Farm in Tennessee, I think Dwight's from Kentucky. Maybe he could go check out Gaston Farm. And you bring the rednecks and the hippies together. At one time, weren't they two groups that really, David Peel used to sing against rednecks and...
Oh, yeah. Yeah?
Yeah?
Well, the rednecks aren't so redneck anymore.
And the hippies.
They got screwed the same way that the hippies were getting screwed, and all of a sudden it united hippies and rednecks.
Well,
they realized everything we were saying was the truth.
The hippies moved to Woodstock and they started interbreeding with the rednecks, and now you got a bunch of hippies with plaid shirts in Woodstock, and that's the nature of the culture.
Hip necks.
That's right. That's right.
I thought it was because they were all starting to smoke the same weed.
Right.
That too.
Now, is it keef or pollen hash?
It's wildwood weed.
Wildwood weed.
Anyway, should I introduce Dwight before he calls in? Because he sent me so much paperwork here.
Yeah, read his thing. That way
really...
I can slip out and get a cigarette. If he calls in, let him hear you read.
Just a second. Talk until I pull up the file, okay? I know you're so anxious to get there, but just a second.
I'm having a nicotiner.
You know, Walter Burian. He sent me stuff from Walter Burian, and you should see at the bottom. It's really funny.
Walter Burian's great.
Explain to people who he is, because I got to read this thing. Listen, overall, part 4 is informative, and please don't scold me for my chain smoking. Joe, please don't scold me for my chain smoking. Please share with those you think would have an interest. Okay, so I think we've got Dwight Class, and then he can guide me through which of the documents I should pull up as you talk to him. Can you hear us, Dwight?
Hold on.
Okay, pretty soon we're going to have Dwight here, and I will pull up my Dwight folder.
Try now.
Okay, hello, Dwight. Can you hear us? Hello, hello.
Yeah. My hearing's not very good, but I'm trying.
Okay, good. Joe's isn't either, so we'll speak up. Okay, I got a lot of interesting stuff from you today, Dwight, and as you and Joe dialogue, maybe you can reference some of them. I'll pull them up, and if you want, I can read them to people, and possibly in editing, I can actually put the documents up. So for future TV shows, we're simulcasting on TV, but we don't have any visuals when we go live on the radio.
On TV.
Yeah, when you're right.
Okay, so there you go, Joe. Take it away.
Actually, I would prefer you. Which one? We want to read one of the things you sent us. Which one would you say Paula starts with?
So Joe can go out and have a cigarette. Let's be real honest about it.
Yeah, I've been here for a while without a cigarette.
A whole 32 minutes.
Okay, here I'll just...
What do you want to do? You want to get into the DVD?
No,
and the 11th Amendment stuff?
The paperwork...
How do you want to do this?
The paperwork that you sent us, I wanted to have her read at least one of the documents before, as a kind of an introduction to who you are, and then we'll let you speak, and I'll have a cigarette while she's reading.
Maybe I'll just read your email and then see. How about that, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead. Now, I just got my computer turned on here, so you tell me what we're doing, and I'll get up the email.
Okay. It would be the email that was sent today. The first one, I'll say, let me start reading it, and you can probably figure it out, or since you wrote it.
What's the time on that? Do you have a time?
The time on this is... let me see, 4:29 p.m. Okay, or maybe I should, let's see. We have learned that we cannot defend ourselves from the corrupt system of an 8 U.S.C. 1481 foreign nationals and United Nations agents hold our W-9 tax ID, public offices reference, 23 CFR 1250 as government entity with entitlement. The W-9 tax ID public office determines both venue and jurisdiction. Congressional mandate defined the actual parties in interest as a state and, quote, political subdivision, end quote, of the state. There is no, in all caps, state of Kentucky / Ohio or Texas in by municipal court as plaintiff. To address the fraud, you challenge the abuses as a violation of the administrative processes, limitations of venue, and jurisdiction of the W-9 public office. We need to file for...
Go ahead. I'm just at the end of my mail here. I'm on...
Okay. We need to file for discovery 5 USC 552 552A on entry or admission by the court and start demanding a record of the corporate status / W-9 tax ID of the plaintiff. Do you want to elaborate on that? Or should I paraphrase? As I'm understanding, what you're saying is that we're mixing apples and oranges. When we go into a court and we think we're on a level playing field, we either have no right to face our accuser because our accuser is fictitious, or they themselves haven't filed the right paperwork because of the United Nations. What happened in 1946? Because you seem to talk about 1946 a lot.
Well, 1945.
Oh, 1945.
Yeah, what this is it was an act of Congress. It was called the International Organizations Immunities Act. And what that did, and I sent you this over, it relinquished every public office of the United States to the United Nations. This law makes all public officials foreign citizens, barring them from judicial power. So basically what you have in every court, and not just in every court, but basically every public office, you have a figurehead.
A figurehead.
Yeah, their sole purpose is within the limitations of the venue and jurisdiction of the office that they hold. So if you are in a municipal court, your power does not extend beyond what you would be able to do in that municipality. City council, if you are in a county court, your jurisdiction does not venture any farther than what the county commissioners would allow you. And under this pretext, there is... But
hang on, Dwight, the county commissioners and the municipal government, when you say, what do they allow you? They allow you according to something that you signed when you thought you were just registering to vote, but you in truth turned yourself from a flesh and blood man or woman into an asset of the county or of the municipal government? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what we are, okay, this starts out is you and I exercising a right to self-government.
Okay.
People, okay. So now we we have to fill offices. So we have people come to us and say, we can do this job for you. We have expertise. We understand what you need, and we can fill this void.
Okay, they pitched us and we bought it. Right?
Pardon?
They pitched us to buy them, and we said, okay, you're on, right? We hired this municipal government. We registered to vote, and we voted them in. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
But whenever they agreed to that job, they agreed to the venue and the jurisdiction of that political subdivision. And that political subdivision has a tax identification number. It is a W-9.
Okay, now how is that W-9 important to the UN 1945?
Well, the tax identification number sets the government, and your W-9, it should say a government entity. It doesn't say a corporate entity.
Okay.
So right there, with a government entity in all these public offices that in 1945 relinquished their citizenship, they are no longer part of the government.
Okay, they're not part of the government. Why?
Why? Because whenever you relinquish your citizenship, or you still have citizenship in your state. Okay,
so I'm still not clear. Do they sign something that says I relinquish citizenship? And how did they get the citizenship in the first place? Because of this confusion over the 14th Amendment, although I have a passport, I'm confused. I want to be a woman with rights.
The 14th Amendment to the Constitution was set up, and it is actually sets up two classes of people. Us, with protected rights and civil liberties, and it set up a class of government people that were under oath. That's under Section 4, or Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
Oh.
That is the President, the Congress, the House, the Senate, the judges, everybody that took an oath of office to a public office is a 14th Amendment citizen. They have immunity and privileges. They don't have protected rights and civil liberties. They only hold that office under good behavior.
So if they uphold the oath, so how come we're coming into courts that says our paperwork, which cites 250 Supreme Court rulings, has no merit?
What they're doing is you go back so far, and Rod knows has this. I think it was after 33 there was a case to where you can't go back past 33 and bring case law in. But again, this goes back under the DVD. What that DVD has...
Oh, the DVD, excuse me, audience. The DVD is 52 judges, Supreme Court judges, meeting in 1996 to basically discuss how to railroad people and not let their cases
that was in all 50 states. And what that was, that went back to the process where that entire cast of people, every Supreme Court justice, every federal judge, every court administrator at that 1996 hearing in every state had already relinquished their citizenship to the UN in 1945. They were not a public officer doing that. They were a corporate office, because every member of the bar, the federal bar, is under a federal corporate charter.
I see. So the W-9, just one second. So the W-9, the problem is it says it's government, but they're not. They're corporate. Is that correct?
Well, the W-9 is our tax identification number.
Right.
It defines who we are and how we collect our federal funding. The federal funding we get under the Highway Safety Act, and this is under Title 23, Code of Federal Regulation, 1250. That's under the Highway Safety Act. Under that statute is actually a state compact. It is a treaty where federal funding is allotted, and this is where the W-9 comes in. You have to be a government entity. You have to be under the Constitution to qualify. Your political subdivision gets 40% of all the federal
Explain
funding.
what a subdivision is for our audience.
You were out smoking when you did. Right?
Okay,
that's the county and the municipal?
Ohio has 88 counties.
Right. Okay.
Okay, each county would have a W-9, would have their own separate tax identification number.
Okay, I didn't know that my audience had heard that because I was having a cigarette, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Like for the state of Ohio would have 88 counties. And then each county in the state of Ohio would have their own W-9, that would have their own separate tax identification number. And that W-9 it has to be a government entity to qualify for the 40% of the federal funding. You can't be a corporation under a doing business as by company name and qualify for federal funding under the Highway Safety Act.
Which is what they're all doing right now. Illegally.
Well, what they're doing is they're doing it under fraud.
Yeah, well, as I said, illegally.
And this gets back into the 40% that we're entitled to. 60% goes to the state, the W-9 government state, and that state does not actually have to make an appearance. It cannot appear in my courtroom. All it has to do is for the 88 county auditors in the state of Ohio to quarterly or however they figure up what their court debt or whatever their public debt is based on the Highway Safety Act, is all 88 county auditors would put their debt in, their billing, with a case number to where that court is brought in the name of the people of, or the county of, or the municipality of, as the plaintiff. Once you've established that W-9, the county or the municipality is the plaintiff in the case, you forward that up to the state auditor. The state auditor applies all that under the Highway Safety Act back into the United States Treasury. Now, this is interstate commerce. It's how you get $1 million. It'd be more than that. But just to round this off, before the state does anything, they get 60% of that $1 million for doing nothing but being a bookkeeper. They have to divide the rest of the 40% up among, based on what the charges was, what the case numbers was, the cost to run the counties, and then the rest of the counties get 40%. The fraud in this case goes back under the doing business as, and this is what these Conference for Chief Justices were covering up. Their partners in this association, the bar members, and actually now, if you look under Dun & Bradstreet or under Manta, the governor of your state, of my state, is also traded as by company name. Everybody's coming in for a piece of the pie, and the way they're getting a piece of the pie is that the governor, the attorney general, and these chief justices and court administrators have created a doing business as state of that now appears in our courtroom as the plaintiff. And they're doing that in every county, all 88 counties in the state of Ohio. Now we have the state of Ohio as plaintiff in the courtroom.
And it's the same here in New York, just for New York people. Go ahead.
So they are not going to allow you, and this is what this Conference of the Chief Justices settled. They are going to allow those lower court judges, the municipal court judges, the county judges, their prosecutors, because the prosecutor is not actually an agent of the county, they all represent the state. They are state officers prior to their oath being taken, and in the commission of a job at the county level, they are officers of the state. They represent the state. And this is what the Conference of Chief Justices is allowing. They are allowing these attorneys, the prosecutors, the bar members, basically everybody that relinquished their citizenship over to the UN in 1945 and today yet, to hold a corporate position to where whenever you come into the courtroom, you cannot defend yourself, because with this DVD, these judges have suspended Article 6, the Supremacy Clause. You are no longer have an affirmative defense or an administrative remedy. They have suspended the Constitution under Article 6. They have suspended your administrative remedy of the laws of the United States for filing a Title 42 claim under the Constitution, and they have suspended your treaty rights.
Doesn't that violate international laws?
Well, this is what I've sent you off tonight here. Our problem is, again, it goes back under the doing business as, and I sent you that North American Industrial Classification System,
right.
That number. That number, under the North American Industrial Classification System, that there are two forms of driver's license. One of them is under the United States Coast Guard, under Title 49, which is and Homeland Security. That's under the Department of Transportation, federal. That's interstate commerce. The other form of license of the North American Industrial Classification System was the franchise-issued license. And I'm trying to find my numbers here.
Yeah, if you tell me the title, NAICS, is that right, or?
Yeah, North American Industrial Classification System, NAICS.
Okay, you want me to read that? 2012 NAICS definition? Yeah,
on the second page there, probably about in the lower third, it should have two forms, and I'm still looking at it.
It's pretty interesting.
But what it gets into is one of the forms of license is a non-government driver's license, and the other one is to a franchise. So basically, whenever we walk into the courtroom, if you have accepted...
Oh, here it is. Motor Vehicle License Issuing Services, Private Franchise.
Okay, that's your state.
Okay.
If you accepted a state-issued driver's license, that is the North American Industrial Classification Code you qualified for.
Okay.
Okay, so once you did that and you agreed to accept that franchise, and it's also a non-government driver's license, you gave up your rights to the Constitution.
Without being told, which was fraudulent.
Yeah, it's unconscionable contracts and clauses.
Right.
And this is what, again, this is why the 1996 DVD of the Conference for Chief Justices, they were trying to shut down, it was like the Freemen were putting liens in against the courts, the bonds. Well, it was going to open up a can of worms because, first off, once you find out that you don't actually have a judge in that position, you have somebody from the UN that was supposed to have been neutral, and now this judge is working under a corporate title as an agent. He's also traded as that company name, and that company name is the state of. There's no one in that courtroom, including the police department, and now your mayor or the sheriff, that does not have a vested interest in the Department of Transportation, the DMV in your state.
A conflict of interest.
It's definitely a conflict of interest. That's why you cannot defend yourself. That's why they suspended Article 6. They denied you a constitutional remedy. You cannot bring the laws of the United States in, and you cannot make a claim for a treaty violation, which would be 28 United States Code 1250. That's an alien tort lien. That is for a treaty violation.
Right. So, without any remedy, this is quite a crisis. That should be. Well,
it is, and this is. We are as if we were in a concentration camp, and we are trying to ask the guards for help, or to put us in touch with somebody that can help. And this is where we are with our court system. We cannot keep filing into the court. And this is my problem with what Rod is doing. It's not his fault. I think the remedy to this is knowing that in 1945 all of these public officers relinquished their citizenship to the UN. I think one of the solutions here is to file back into the UN as an injured party. Use our tax identification number as the claim number for that injury, and have them do an audit on the doing business as state of as to why they have failed to either discharge the public debt, or in the commerce side of this thing under Title 12, Banks and Banking, with all the banks operating under the Emergency War Powers Act and Title 50, that means that before these judges can create a corporation called the state of, they have to justify an unregistered doing business as state of with Title 12 under the Emergency War Powers Act, because until we actually have peace restored to my government, we have no corporate entities in this United States at all.
Explain that a little deeper for my audience, because,
okay.
Most of them, I try to tell my audience, as far as law goes, most lawyers are still in grade school. A lot of us sovereign people who've really studied law because we've had to are on a level of, like I say, I'm probably still in high school. But like people like you and Rod and a few others that we've been in touch with are up in the college level. But we're talking to people, a lot of people in the audience that don't even have the education of lawyers, who don't really have a great legal education. So explain it a little.
Most of our audiences.
Explain it a little better, please.
Okay. Getting back under the 1945. If you understand what the 11th Amendment is, the 11th Amendment to the Constitution, okay, the 11th Amendment of the Constitution reads as follows. the judicial power of the United States shall now be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity, commencing or prosecute against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subject of a foreign state. Okay, so if our tax identification number, that W-9, sets us up and defines us as a state, and the International Organization of Immunities Act separated that judge into a foreign state under the UN, by what authority do they bring a charge against us that we would not have 11th Amendment immunity?
Right.
And that includes any member of the bar. If the Federal Bar Association is a federal charter corporation, and they are not actually a part of government, they are a corporation,
so
they have to apply back to their administrative office to petition them to inform my governor of my W-9 state that there is a problem, asking his permission to contact me to sue me for whatever reason, and I just tell them, forget it, it ain't going to happen. I have 11th Amendment immunity.
okay.
But since the Conference of Chief Justices have suspended the Constitution, they have suspended that right under Article 6.
Illegally suspended, by the way.
Pardon?
I was just pointing out to my audience, they illegally suspended it, or fraudulently.
Or unlawfully.
Unlawfully.
Yeah, even under the War Powers Act, we have rights as non-enemy combatants. We still have property rights.
Right.
Before they can take anything, we have to have a receipt with notification that when hostilities are over, we will be reimbursed. The problem here is whenever you're dealing with a doing business as, also traded by company name, that is performing the function of a victorious army without actually declaring a war, it's actually a hostile takeover, corporate takeover, and not a government takeover. There is no end to hostilities. There is no end to peace.
Well, we're all in agreement. I've said many, many times to my audience that we don't have a government right now. We have the United States is a corporation. Every state has now been incorporated. I have told my audience that, so hopefully they've been paying attention and they're keeping up with what you're saying. But go on, please.
The only time we actually have a government, and we have to have a constitutional government for us, you and I, to actually be the beneficiary to the federal funding. Because it is us exercising the right to self-government that justifies that W-9. Okay, the only time that actually gets used is to qualify for federal funding, which allows that corporate entity, that corporate state, as the plaintiff to come in and steal 100% of it, so we don't get any of the benefit of that 40%. We don't get the benefit of having our debt discharged. What the doing business as state has done under that non-government franchise-issued driver's license is they are using your signature
as collateral.
As collateral, and that collateral is under 31 Code of Federal Regulation 363.33. That is, if you are a ward, and you are a ward, they hold your birth certificate, that allows their agent, their attorney, mayor, judge, prosecutor, with your signature, allows them access to your Treasury Direct account, your Federal Reserve account, and that's under that 31 Code of Federal Regulation 363.33. That's what that signature does.
And the purpose of that, Dwight, would you say, is for the international community to know that if they're investing in this country, that the people of this country, which really is the wealth of the country, are being treated correctly so that they can be productive? Is that the whole point of all of these rules and regulations?
No, it's to let they've turned us into chattel in their corporate scheme. So it's like in the days when there were slaves had a value. They now have put a value on us as if we were slaves. Am I correct on that?
You're correct. Yeah, it is our value.
But Dwight, don't they?
This is what part of my issue here is that we have a right. Again, the issue is where do you file it into? We actually need access to the Human Rights or War Crimes Division of the UN, and we need to do it under a claim under RW9 as a government, and have them audit, and the audit process is under 40 United States Code 5108. That is an audit for any corporation. And go back under war crimes. Again, the statute says they are required either under war to give 70% of their profit in support of the military, our military, not their private security. And that was the other sheet on that NAICS paperwork I give you. The last sheet lists private security on there. It is not a police department. Does not mention police department.
Right, and for my viewers,
policeman.
Yeah, here it is. Security Guards and Patrol Services, 561612. This U.S. industry comprises establishments primarily engaged in providing guard and patrol services, such as bodyguards, guard dog, and parking security services. And then it gives cross-references there. Wow.
Which means that all our police right now are basically just rent-a-cops for the politician. They're not really police.
That's exactly what Rodney found out whenever he had that issue with Dallas police in North Carolina. He was summoned into municipal court, but before he got to that municipal court, he filed for a hearing with the Office for Administrative Hearing in North Carolina, and that is under the governor, and it's not the judiciary. That is under the Administrative Procedures Act, I think it's 1946. That is supposed to be our administrative remedy. You take your complaint up to the governor, because he is the chief executive officer over the entire state and all offices. You file your First Amendment petition for redress into his office as a government issue. And in this case, he appoints an administrative hearing officer that understands what the governor's position is and to uphold the governor's position as executive. So what happened whenever Rodney filed his claim, the Attorney General for North Carolina come in and basically stated that the Office for Administrative Hearing did not have jurisdiction to hear the case because all the offices that Rodney Class filed on, which was the Dallas Police Department, the Department of Motor Vehicle, and the municipal court, were not agencies or offices of government. They were all private contractors.
Horrifying.
Repeat that again for my audience. I really want them to get that.
This is the law, and this is basically what the Attorney General said was that the claim that Rodney Class put in, and this goes back under the Highway Safety Act, our right, exercising the right to self-government. The Attorney General said that the people that Rodney Class named, and Rodney Class named the Dallas Police Department, the municipal court as an agency of government, and the DMV as an agency of government. But the Attorney General come in and told the Office for Administrative Hearing that these people that Rodney Class named were not actually agencies of government. They were all private contractors, and that's what that NAISC on the third page there verifies, that they are all private security.
By law, we have to pause for station identification, right? The Federal Communications License.
Yeah, we're just going to do
a
quick one, and we'll be right back to you. Go ahead.
WIOFLP Woodstock 104. We're here with Further Down Rabbit Hole.
No,
Pot
Talk.
Talk.
It's Pot Talk with Joe Barton and Paula Gloria here.
And we're simulcasting, huh?
Simulcasting, and with Mr. Dwight Class on the phone.
I'm trying to break this down as simple as I can, in language, but I still have to get some of the code stuff in there to clarify,
right.
To look at, to verify.
Right. No, it's true when you've got the visuals in front of you.
Well, that's good that you're giving them the code so they don't think we're just making it up. A lot of times when I tell people this stuff, they think I'm just making it up. I don't know what I'm talking about. But
Let me just run through this for a breather. North American Industry Classification System, and it starts to talk about illustrative examples: bartering services, flagging, i.e. traffic control services, bottle exchanges, float decorating services, cloth cutting, bottling, or winding for the trade. Inventory taking services, contract meter reading services, lumber grading services, diving services on a contract or fee basis. Cross-reference establishments primarily engaged in providing office administrative services are classified in Industry 561110, office administrative services. Providing facility support services are classified in Industry 561210, facility services. It goes on, and let's see. Index numbers, entries, auctioneers, independent bartering services, bottle exchange, cloth cutting, coin pickup services, parking meter, coupon processing services, coupon redemption services, i.e. clearinghouse, diving services on a contract or fee basis, document shredding services, electrical meter reading services, contract, firefighting services as a commercial activity. That's interesting. Flagging, i.e. traffic control services, float decorating, gas meter reading, inventory, license issuing services, except government, motor vehicle, locating underground utility lines prior to digging, lumber grading, meter reading, motor vehicle license issuing services, private franchise. How fascinating. So it's right here.
That's what we said in our court case against the license.
Right. They took
you know what all of them have in common?
Yeah, they're all private.
They are all a vendor.
Right.
That has license to that state to do business.
Right. Okay, so they're what you call the franchisee?
And in reality, they don't have jurisdiction over us, even though they fraudulently do it.
So
this is why the Supreme Court had the opinion that your police department do not actually have to represent an individual. They are there for the community. Well, right there, if you see that nobody asked the constitutional question of the Supreme Court. The constitutional issue should have been exercising my right to self-government for employment. And if that man has my badge on or my uniform on that has my name on his sleeve, why am I paying him if he works for a doing business as or is a private corporate contractor?
Right.
Right. Why is he being paid out of tax dollars?
Exactly right. Why isn't the state of that appears as plaintiff paying that man to represent him with a vested interest instead of me paying him and being fraud?
When you say me, you just for the audience, he means us as taxpayers. Why are we paying the state for private security that works against us?
Yeah, we are paying all of these. We're paying the prosecutor,
the judge,
we are paying a mayor, we are paying a county judge to sit in an office that we provided them We actually provided them laws, and they don't use. The only thing they use is the office and our money to make money for their own private corporation. They are nothing more than an agent.
And this is fraudulent under our Constitution.
It is. Well, I think what people don't understand was that once you start dealing with my signature as a federal crime and interstate commerce, because the Treasury Department is not in my state that it's getting the money from.
Excuse me, let me...
Or wherever the Treasury Department is.
Excuse me, let me jump in. Instead of saying my, which confuses the audience, say we the peoples. Instead of them using we the peoples.
Okay. Yeah, whenever we the people are in the court, and a signature is required on that citation, that citation is a contract, and basically what that is a surety.
A security.
They're making money off of every ticket that is signed because now they have a contract with that, and they have access. They have value to that now because your signature's on that citation.
Okay, now you say here violation of a traffic code is a war crime, non-taxable income for restitution of damages. That's your words from today's email.
It is a war crime. Because if the Supreme Court has made the opinion that the police do not represent me or do not have to protect me,
we the people,
they cannot file a claim against me without due process of law or an actual affidavit of a complaint. They are impersonating.
I see.
The difference between a police officer amounts to whether my city hall or my county commissioners listen to a group of people and we come in and say, hey, we need a stop sign over here. Let's enact a law. So we have an enacting clause that defines who we are, why we wanted the stop sign. City Hall or county commissioners vote on it. They say, yes, you do need that. We have the safety man out there. He says it is. It's a hazard. It's a Title 42 human health and welfare claim. So now we actually have a cause for a police officer to go out there because you and I actually passed a law.
We the people.
We the people.
Right.
So what's going on now is, with that North American industrial classification of what a private security is, they are working on a code violation. So we didn't actually pass anything. So if we weren't actually a party to the contract, then I have 11th Amendment immunity like the Constitution states.
That's we have, not I. We
the people.
Yeah, we the people. We have 11th Amendment immunity.
Okay, so is that what Rod means about being properly extradited by the State Department if we do have to go into these military courts? In other words, we're going into a foreign court. See, it says non-tax...
Well, the case with Rodney was that the Supreme Court had already overturned. In Heller, I think it was, and it was Perlman, it was a 2008 case where the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the District of Columbia gun ban is unconstitutional in violation of the Second Amendment. Okay, now think about that. If they, in 2008, made a determination, isn't that gun ban unconstitutional from its inception, and all the people that created that? Where was the enacting clause? Who needed that? And if the Bar Association is actually enforcing it, if they have a charter, and if they disqualify themselves for not upholding the Constitution, that is the issue with Rodney Class's case. Nobody on the prosecutor's side representing the District of Columbia, knowing that the gun ban had already been overturned, actually filed for entry of appearance.
They wanted to stay fictitious?
Pardon?
A fictitious plaintiff against Rodney?
Well, yeah, they actually have to have an affidavit by somebody that is an injured party, and they can't actually, once the Supreme Court has overturned a gun ban, they can't appear to be supporting it by filing in their own paperwork that, yes, I am filing a claim in protest of what the Supreme Court filed. They can't do that.
Right.
They haven't done it, and that's the problem. There are rules of court and rules of procedure, and they have violated all of them.
And so that's why you think going to the UN and filing a claim is the remedy for the abusive process?
And again, this all goes back under Title 12, Banks and Banking. It's under 95A, 95B, and 411. If you look under Title 12, that is actually 95, I think, A and 95B and 411 is actually under Title 50, which is the War Powers Act. So any commercial enterprise under Title 12 is under the Emergency War Powers Act. So you're not just dealing with a state issue. You are dealing with a war crime because now you're dealing in commerce during a time of war, and you're embezzling.
Right. Speaking of embezzling, you said here that Alex Jones and Walter Burian in the state of Texas, Austin, applied an FOIA, Freedom of Information, to the DBA, all caps, State of Texas Comptroller of the Currency, end caps, in Austin. Government Comptroller of the Currency is only one in Houston, Texas. The FOIA info was that the DBA, by company name, an all caps City of Austin Comptroller of Currency, showed value/assets of $456 billion. You said in the red, but I think you meant in the black. While the W-9 government entity, City of Austin, not in all caps, was in the red.
Well, there was a $456 billion profit.
But this City of Austin Comptroller of Currencies, it's totally a fictitious name.
Well, yeah, and that's what my issue was.
Uh-huh.
Because they can't register when doing business as State of Texas as the plaintiff because there is a conflict in copyright between the government entitlement and the fraud created upon by the corporate state of Texas.
Well, it's such breathtaking fraud that you know, like I say, it takes your breath away.
Well, that is just one city.
Yeah, right.
That is just one city. So now
Imagine
if they
Woodstock.
don't have an actual plaintiff, where is all that money sitting there? Isn't after 90 days, can't you file a 1099 abandoned form on that? Because if they're putting the money into an account, but nobody's making a claim for it because they can't legally claim it as a government.
So what does it do? Go offshore and?
Well, that's a good question. Again, this is why we need the UN. And this is what we was hoping, what Rod was hoping with that seminar that we did in North Carolina in 2014. This is why we had the International Film Crew in.
And that all fell apart with the judges.
Well, it did, because I think they were, and I was curious about this whenever Sir John,
yeah,
and
right.
he was reluctant, and he was sick, he couldn't do this, and he was a judge, and whatever he was doing, but he wouldn't,
I didn't trust him from the get-go.
I wasn't too wild about him either.
Well, that's all water under the bridge now, and it's all, experience. Can I be a little more practical here about your retirement pension, just to take a breather?
Yeah.
I thought this was, this is so practical, and I think so many people can relate to it. You were a steel worker, correct?
Yeah, I was. I worked at the Timken Company in Canton, Ohio.
Okay, great. Reference to my retirement pension. I have my pension sent to me, and I have moved 5 times since 2009. Every time I move, I call Timken Associate Services hourly to do a change of address. When I call in early February for my latest change of address, the Timken agent/associate related, you call in time early enough because it takes the Federal Reserve 20 days to do a change of address, and you should get your check by the 29th. As she said Federal Reserve, I asked, why is my pension associated with the Federal Reserve account when my union contract relies on a pension/retirees account from a Timken account to draw the funds from? To confirm, I ordered back years of the 1099-R tax form for review. I went over the data with a friend in Texas that had a state license to sell insurance/pension/DO bonds. What's a DO bond?
A bail bond.
Okay, bail bond. Using my Social Security without the dashes in the 1099-R boxes is transfer from the Federal Reserve. I have contacted the Union Hall Steelworkers in Canton, Ohio, and the new vendor Timken employed to handle the pension fund. By all indications, I have 30 years of credit, quote unquote, with interest and review of pension since I retired in 1999, as Timken owed credit, since I created no debt by my 30 years employment. Another application to consider is commercial access by the courts cooperating under/as code enforcement to an NAICS classified franchise, quote unquote franchise, issuing a non-government driver's license. Under pretext of accepting the quote unquote franchise license, we agreed to become enemies of the DBA state that enforces the code. Violation of a traffic code is a war crime, non-taxable income for restitution of damages. So that's why they don't have to declare the income that they collect on traffic tickets?
Yeah, I think that's why. And that's why Austin had $456 billion sitting there, because it was, again, it goes back, if you're awarded for an entry, you don't pay tax on it.
Uh-huh. I see.
Okay, so what they're doing now is you actually agree to be an enemy of the state. You agree to abide by their code, their standard, and if you get stopped, this is a war crime now. So this is justification for them using your signature and getting back into your Treasury Direct account, and I think that probably 99% of that $456 billion was clearly not from spending Federal Reserve notes on a citation, but what the judges actually use their signature for to get back into your trust account.
You want to explain that, you and Joe?
No, yeah, you can explain it. I've explained the trust account many, many times, but you may come at it from a different point and clarify it for some of our listeners. Explain that, please. The trust account.
I don't know a lot about the trust. Rodney does that. The only thing I'm making a reference back to is that what our signature does. And that the signature is a direct access.
Right, it allows them to access our trust account.
Yeah, it's under that 31 Code of Federal Regulation 363.33.
And that's the same for my viewers. That's the same when you fill out a mortgage with the bank. That's the same way they're tapping into your trust account. They're taking, when you sign your signature with the bank to get a mortgage, the federal government gives the bank the money out of your trust account that you don't even know you have, and then the bank turns around and says, we loaned you money. They didn't actually loan you money. Your signature created the money, and then the bank turns around and says, you owe us money.
Well, let me add to that. What we have here is we're only supposed to have three parties. We're supposed to have me as the buyer, the bank as the middleman, and somebody else as a seller. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with a house or you're dealing with a vehicle. There should be a process here where your signature goes to the bank, and the bank talks to the seller for the vehicle or the house, and all they are is a transfer agent. The bank manager or somebody should have a medallion seal to deal with sureties, so that he takes your signature, he takes it to the comptroller, or he takes it to the Federal Reserve, or to the U.S. Treasury account, gets the cash.
For our signature.
On your signature. But what we have now, again, under that doing business as by company name, that NAICS franchise that issued a non-government license, you have to use your license now, your state ID to the bank. So now the state has their own notary there. So the bank is using the state notary. You sign it. You're agreeing to get excess money out of your account, but you're also, by the state, taking your original manufacturer certificate of origin as collateral and reissuing you with a counterfeit certificate of title. You're paying a debt on a piece of counterfeit paper whenever the state is not only getting the money that you signed for, but they're also getting your vehicle into value.
For a lot of my viewers to wrap their heads around the how big the swindle is that we've all been having, but
well, I did some research here, and it's called statutory abandonment, and it was a statute of the state of Texas, and it's also under the UCC code. Statutory abandonment goes back to your vehicle title.
Could you send me a copy of that on the internet?
Oh, by the way, Dwight, we've got another caller calling in. Her name is Lydia Radin, and as soon as we get her on the line, are you on the line, Lydia?
I'm here.
Okay, great. This is Dwight Class. He's the brother of Rod Class, and this is Lydia Radin, probably one of the most ambitious public access producers in Manhattan. She's not aggressive. She's assertive. She's taught me I'm not aggressive either. I'm assertive about our rights.
And we love Lydia because Lydia fights them in court like very few people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, actually, I wanted to thank you, sir, because I'm using some of the materials that your brother forwarded to me about a private attorney general, and I'm pleased to report. No, you're going to love this. I'm pleased to report that we had a hearing in front of a federal judge, and she refused to recognize one of us who's a paralegal with over 23 years worth of litigation experience as a private attorney general because she claimed she didn't know what it was. So we slammed her in court with some of the law journal articles, and now she's scheduled another hearing. So that's like huge. Thank you. I mean, this is like huge.
Well, that's good. You know, Rodney he understands his paperwork. You know, it's to the point where if you can't defend yourself, you have to start filing claims against the other party for a violation of our administrative procedure in our offices by a foreign national.
I agree, and I wanted to also let you know that I put together a little courtroom observers network or court watchers group, and they started putting in one-pagers saying, the person who's doing this happens to be in federal court, and we just started putting in one-pagers saying, we nominate him, we appoint him as a private attorney general, and then we started putting in irrefutable evidence that shows there's no enforcement on a state level or a federal level. So we started giving example after example after example of people who were seriously damaged and injured in the state and federal courts, so that there's nothing left for us to do but become private attorney generals. And we were fortunate enough in New York that we got an expert witness from Washington who did a study of all the state attorney generals in the nation, and this is based on objective criteria. And he listed our state attorney general in New York as the 6th worst state attorney general in the nation, and things were so bad that he allowed state corruption to flourish to such an extreme degree that federal prosecutors had no choice but to step in. So our argument to this federal judge was, listen, it's not these examples that we're giving you of really horrific stories. People have been horribly damaged, and these are irrefutable. Is not just anecdotal. We actually have an expert witness from Washington that says that the reason this happens is because we have no enforcement. And then we demonstrated that, or at least I demonstrated, that we caught not only AUSAs, Assistant United States Attorneys, lying and engaged in corruption, but also U.S. Attorney Paul Fishman in Newark. So now when we've got the federal prosecutors who aren't enforcing, and we've got the state attorney general that's allowing state corruption to flourish, he's actually providing a free defense for judges who violate the law and the Constitution in contravention of New York Public Officers Laws, Section 17. So we are making compelling arguments to this federal judge that we have no choice but to pick up the mantle of a private attorney general and start doing this ourselves. And she doesn't know what to say.
Become a bounty hunter, right? You're a bounty hunter.
Well, now we're doing that too. You can pay me for all this, and I already won 2 orders to show cause in landlord-tenant court. So now we're just getting people to, we have a pretrial hearing. We didn't think we'd get this, but we have a pretrial. We didn't even think we'd be able to take the thing to trial, but we are. Apparently, I just found out today when I checked the docket sheet, there's a pretrial hearing scheduled in mid-May. Joe and Paula wanted a piece of this action, so guess what? I can still put in your paperwork. And so now we're just having people put in one-pagers that say, you know, we want this person to be a private attorney general. We want this person to be a private attorney general. And the judge doesn't know what to do because she's bound by law. She's bound by...
Let me... I think you're going to find the same issue that Rod found.
Okay.
That whoever you had, opposing counsel, never applied for entry to the courtroom. So if you find that out, and you were the only one in it, we actually have to file for entry also. I've got some, I think, SF-95s that I sent over on a DVD to Paul and Gloria.
Hey, hang on, Dwight, I don't know how familiar Lydia is with your paperwork or the different forms. Lydia, he's approaching that W9 government entities.
SF-95.
No, I know SF-90. Okay, you're going on it. Go, speak.
No, go ahead. Explain the SF-95 to Lydia, please.
Well, if Lydia wants my email address, you give it to her in private.
Oh yeah, we can do all of that later. But
I will start sending her stuff that I send you.
No. But the thing is, we're live right now, and we've got an audience on TV and radio.
So. In private.
But
yeah, we'll send her your stuff in private. But explain the SF-95
for our
audience and for Lydia.
Okay. The SF-95 is a government form, and basically, you're working it under a private attorney general or as a private attorney general because you're actually making a claim against or to an office for administrative oversight. What we filed our stuff into. Whenever I was with Rodney, I filed my SF-95s in against Capitol Hill Police Department. Okay, the SF-95s I filed in for an injury, and I went back under the code that their administrative oversight for Capitol Hill Police Department was the Sergeant at Arms for the Senate, the Sergeant at Arms for the House, and the Capitol Architect. That they had violated their own administrative procedure by denying Rodney Class due process by taking him before one of those 3 people instead of turning him over to the D.C. Metro, which is a corporation, and if the Capitol Hill Police Department is supposed to be an agency of government. You have 2 separate powers there. So I have 5 SF-95s for entry form, and basically what you have to do on an SF-95 is you have to use... I applied for entry. I applied for entry to the court. Whatever we're doing, I try to apply for entry. I put a statutory violation, and I'm using Title 28 U.S.C. 1250 as an alien tort claim. It's for a treaty violation, and that gets back to the 11th Amendment. That is between my state and the state for the District of Columbia. There is a treaty violation. Whatever the Capitol Hill Police Department do or how they operate, it is supposed to be full faith and credit to my state.
Mm.
So now I have 5 claims I put in, and I sent over on the DVD, and I probably sent some paperwork over that I got a response back, and I actually filed that SF-95 into the Sergeant at Arms for the House, the Sergeant at Arms for the Senate, and the Capitol architect. And that's who I filed my claim into, and I think I have probably $1.5 million, $750,000 for injury and $750,000 for something else. But you have to put money damages down.
Let me just jump in for a second and explain to Lydia a little bit. Lydia, you can have as many people file this SF-95. If your rights are being violated, so are theirs. So the more people that file the SF-95, every one of them can collect on that SF-95 because your rights are being violated, their rights are being violated, and they have a claim. Am I not correct, Dwight?
Yes, you're correct. This is what we was trying to get everybody, whenever Rod was going through this process, to get up and start filing SF-95s in. You know, we made up a bunch of them, and basically with what we made up, all the people had to do was sign their name to it, put their address on it, and put a signature on it, and they could mail it off. And
they have to mail it registered mail and keep copies of the registered mail.
But all you have to do, I sent mine out registered mail. I actually mailed out, I think, 12 or 14 separate offices that should have dealt with Capitol Hill Police Department or did know that the Supreme Court had overturned the gun ban in 2008. Now, what had happened since I have filed I actually filed 11 claims against the Federal Bar Association for statutory violations, disqualification of their office for a charter violation. What has happened since then is in 2014, the District Court for the District of Columbia, and this is going on whenever Rod, we was at the seminar in North Carolina in 2014, that weekend, it come across on the television that the District Court had found the District of Columbia in contempt for failing to uphold or amend the gun ban that the Supreme Court had found unconstitutional. So that contempt charge justifies and is cause for default on every one of those SF-95s that we filed by the people we filed them into. They didn't respond, and whenever they found the District of Columbia in contempt, they didn't name anybody, and we did.
Wow.
Isn't the idea of this, Dwight, to correct the embezzling so that the Treasury can be nice and full again?
Well, it would be nice, but we don't have three branches of government, and we do not have checks and balances, and that is the problem. We assume that we're all running around here free. Gas is whatever, and I get to go to work and watch TV. We live in a free society. But as long as your signature is paying their bills, they need you around. So they will put up with you until we have some police officer that's got an IQ of probably 35 shoots one of us, and now they have to go back under that DVD and cover it up because now it's a justifiable homicide. And instead of making the issue with the police department, that issue should be carried up to the mayor, the county prosecutor, the city council,
the governor,
right up to the governor's office for the training process, knowing that they are all private security and they are impersonating. That was a murder. That was not a justifiable homicide.
Okay, what I wanted to know, Lydia, I don't know how carefully you listened to that 1996 judges conference, by the State Justice Institute, federally funded, but I was struck that it said there were militiamen, there were freedmen, sovereigns, that it came out of the uncorrected bank foreclosures of the farms in Montana and Oklahoma in the late 80s. And then they said they're racist people, but then about 15 minutes later they said the same arguments were being used by the black Muslims and that there was a large contingency in the NYPD that were getting hip to all of this. So
okay, yeah, again, that was the intent was there. You have to get a remedy. But my claim is, if you're dealing with somebody from the UN, this is not a government entity, all you're doing is you're taking money out of my public office because that person is going to leave without having a debt. My idea, and we talked about this, was if they're using my signature to access my Treasury Direct account, and again, that is 31, Code of Federal Relations 363.33, we should use their signature that accepted our public office under our terms, and that whenever they vacated that office and started impersonating under a corporate title or under private security, they violated their contract, so we are putting a lien against their Treasury Direct account using their signature on an SF-95 as a 14th Amendment bounty on a public debt. That's my suggestion.
Okay, so in this case, you embrace the 14th Amendment definition.
I do, because, again...
I see. Okay, so that's what Rod says, learn their rules and regulations. Now, was this the type of liens that they were talking about in this judges' conference that they said was so outrageous and was being bought as securities by other countries and banks?
Well, what the other countries are buying is I don't have it, with the QSIP account or CRIPS account, and I have a PDF on that, and I've lost so many files. I've got 3.
No, I was just trying to quickly overview, because there's so many layers to that judges conference of 1996. There's so many ways of looking at it, including, I don't know, Lydia, you're pretty sophisticated about psychology. It almost seems like they're federal hitmen that are selling insurance to these state or these lower level courts. Well, these were state Supreme Court judges. They wanted to keep it out of the state Supreme Court to contain it. So it's like the abuse of law has gotten so rampant that now it's dependent on law enforcement to just sort of muscle its way through to whatever end they decide is correct, which is why I can understand why a contingent of the NYPD would rebel against this when the courts are.
This is what I've been trying to get across with what's going on with Rod in the District of Columbia and the attorneys up there.
Right, and the importance of his gun case.
Yeah, the importance of that attorney. And I was with Rod in North Carolina, and I was with the Treasury agent. The Treasury agent also appeared at the seminar in 2014. She was with us in Charlotte whenever the prosecutor, I think his name is Perlman, and the public defender that Rod had, flew in to Charlotte Public Defender's office to uphold a gun ban that had already been overturned by the Supreme Court in 2008 for Rod to make a plea bargain. Now, somewhere along the line, a federal marshal, or at least somebody from the state militia or a sheriff's department, should have met these two people out in the street. And if there was any cause for a justifiable homicide, it should have been that for war crimes.
Yeah.
If that's true, then everything that happened to Rod is it's void. It's open to collateral attack in any court of his choosing. The whole thing is, I wouldn't put too much trust in the U.S. Marshals. They're a bunch of dumb bunnies, and they just do what they have a little system here in New York where the federal judge hurts somebody. They just did this to 2 Russian guys. There was a Russian gentleman who was suing in the Southern District of New York. The judge screwed him. He started to sue the judge, so the judge told a pack of lies to the U.S. Marshals. They SWAT teamed the poor guy. They almost killed him, and then they transferred the U.S. Marshals to another district. And then when he sued the U.S. Marshals for almost killing him, the same federal judges killed his case. So I wouldn't put too much stock in the U.S. Marshals, but if what you're saying is true, that the gun ban was overturned or by the Supreme Court in 2008, and everything they did to Rod it's void ab initio. They were operating in contempt of Supreme Court rulings. They should be held in contempt of Supreme Court rulings. You should argue U.S. versus Lee, because as creatures of the law, they're bound by the law. Bind them by their own statutes. Bind them by their own. I agree with Rod. Learn their rules and hang them by it.
You missed earlier. Actually, none of these police are real the state police. They're all corporate police. They're actually
private security,
glorified private security.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm going to be learning a whole lot from Rod Class, because I got issues with the U.S. Capitol Police myself.
Of course you do.
Except they backed off on me real quick, because they know I have ways of protecting myself. The last time I went down to Washington, Charles Schumer, my representative, Senator Schumer, lied to the U.S. Capitol Police. They almost arrested me, but they didn't, because I had my hand
Dwight, try not.
in my hand.
Dwight, I think you're breathing into your mic. It's picking up here. Somebody's breathing.
But I'll tell you, I'll be right on the heels of Rod Class, learning everything that you're doing, because as soon as you get done, I'm going to be following your footsteps.
Paula, Lydia, Rod has up. We'll send it to you how to find it, or Dwight can send it to you when we hook you up with him. Rod has, I think, 4 right now videos on actually how to do a private attorney general. He gives a course on it, and it's up on the internet. So you definitely should watch that course.
Fabulous. I'm telling you right now, when we presented in front of a federal judge, and she refused to recognize the private attorney general, I talked to Rod Class. He sent me his law journal articles, and immediately I did a submission in federal court, and I reminded the judge. I said, "You're a creature of the law. You're bound by the law. According to U.S. versus Lee, you must obey these statutes, and we've already put in front of you compelling, irrefutable evidence that our state attorney general, Eric Schneiderman, does not uphold the law. He allows all of us to be victimized, so there's nothing else that we can do here but pick up the mantle of the private attorney general. And right now, we're taking this woman's breath away. She doesn't know what to say."
What do you think,
God
Dwight?
Bless you. It's very effective. The information that you gave us is extremely effective, and I want to thank you very much. It's literally life-saving information for one of us.
That's the stuff I sent you. You're talking about?
Yeah, well, then the stuff that Rod Class sent me, too. He sent me 2 law journal articles that discuss a private attorney general and that characterize the private attorney general as what they can't refute is that there were many civil rights cases. You probably know this better than I do. Some with the NAACP, where these the public service attorneys were doing the best they could. You know, they were working for very little money, and they were doing civil rights cases, and the only way that they could get paid was to becoming a private attorney general. And so some of these cases went to the Supreme Court. Now, you're not going to tell the entire African American community that you're going to take away this tool that helped them vindicate some of their rights, because you're going to have that's just not going to fly. So,
and actually, Congress passed the law that said we the people have a right to be private attorney generals.
Exactly, and and basically what they're saying is it's a request for attorney's fees. So when you're a private litigant and you're litigating away, like our cases, and you're not only fighting for yourself, but you realize, well, no, but you're litigating away, and you realize that you're not only fighting for yourself, but your case also has you're vindicating rights that affect large numbers of people. Like, for example, Paula and Joe are heroes, and they're fighting with us free speech, First Amendment war down in the Southern District of New York with public access TV. So they're not just...
And Lydia is being so modest, Dwight, because she went to provide some supporting evidence and to witness my right to intervene, in my motion to intervene as a right, and she nearly got beaten to death by these U.S. Marshals. You're going to find out in this paperwork they're private security officers.
Well, yeah, this is what I was trying to notify the stuff out in Oregon.
What's that, Dwight?
About the Oregon, with the land out in Oregon.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, I don't have a lot of information. The only thing I was saying is it goes back into you're probably land management is a vendor. They are not the government entity. They are also traded by a company name.
I see, a third-party land management vendor. I got it.
Yeah, and see, that's what everybody... Whenever you start talking about a state of Ohio driver's license or a state of Kentucky driver's license,
or a state of New York,
you're talking about a third-party debt collector.
Mm-hmm.
You're not filing a claim for a First Amendment petition for redress of a government. You actually have to go under the Fair Debt Collection Practices.
Okay, so and the debt is ultimately going to be collected by the barrel of a gun, and that's why Rod's gun case is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because the pressure on the police now is just tremendous because of the lack of due process in the courts. You know, because we don't know who we're dealing with. We think we're dealing with one entity because it's got a name that looks like a government entity. They're pretending to be a government entity, but the truth of the matter is they're not. So
I sent you over some stuff, and I know it's on the disc, but I think it's under 29 CFR 2200.35, and I think that goes back into where they have to declare their corporate status, their parent company, or what organization they are with as part of their discovery or entry to the court. And that should be, well, it is. It's required, it's rule of court and procedure, but it's not used because your local prosecutor on a traffic case, knowing that we have amendment immunity from their corporate power because they took it in the wrong court in the first place, they should have taken it to a state court and not a municipal court.
And that's why the entry of appearance is important, right?
That's why the entry of appearance is important. This is what you have to check on with your traffic case, because these prosecutors, they are running numbers. They're not running, they're doing a volume. And they don't have to be right as long as you come in and cop out a plate.
Right.
So it wouldn't take probably 3 or 4 people to file a freedom of information claim to where now you have 3 separate people, same prosecutor, 3 different cases, that he didn't do his job right, and you turn in a claim to the state's risk management and put a claim against him, again, on a 14th Amendment binding on a public debt, because everything they're working on they're claiming it's under the Highway Safety Act, but my state cannot compel me to have a driver's license, not whenever the Supreme Court has already determined I have a right to travel. This is going back under their corporate policy again, not a state policy.
And yet those judges make fun of that in that 1996 conference. That's about all they can rely on, but you can see that the audience is fearful, and what I call as federal hitmen selling insurance seem to be playing up on that. I mean, the psychology is tremendous, and for somebody like me who considers herself a spiritual healer type, it's really painful to watch souls becoming destroyed.
Oh, I agree with you there. That is so true, Paula. It really was. The part where the presenter is speaking and he says, if you're willing to die for a cause, you're willing to kill for a cause. And I was so taken aback. I was like, really? Are you telling all the people who were following Martin Luther King that because they were willing to make the sacrifices necessary, that they're, you're trying to spin that into something nefarious, like they're willing to kill for a cause. I was so sick I couldn't even look.
Yeah, they were frightening the audience, and there was one you could see a kind of a gutsy black voice, a judge, and she's going, "Well, can we get some federal funding to pull this off? What you're trying to sell?" I really had to admire that judge for speaking up. Did you catch that, Lydia?
Milk them for the money. Milk them for the that's fair.
And then the guy backs off. He goes, I barely get enough money from my agency. And I don't know how carefully you've watched that, Dwight, but because I'm an editor, I look at it with a fine-tooth comb. Plus, I'm extremely interested in psychology, and psychoanalysis, the kind that heals, not the kind that pummels people into consenting into the unconsentable.
Well, you always feel you're under a threat, and we should not be under a threat. We're the owner-operator.
Yeah, the owner-operator.
I have an issue that Rodney was dealing with another gun charge in Ohio, and I had to go down to the Allstate Insurance Man because Rodney was up from Florida. He had residency, he had mail, he had his Social Security, everything was in Florida, and he was up there helping take care of Dad in Ohio. And I went down to the Allstate Man, and I took Rod's insurance card down, and I was trying to explain to him what's going on, and he said, well, you can't fight City Hall. And I said, that's the wrong attitude. First off, I'm City Hall.
Yeah, right.
And if there's an issue with labor and City Hall, it's usually called rebellion and insurrection, and that's treason.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there's a fight at City Hall, they're going against my wishes, our wishes as the government, as employers. And until we start understanding that process, that this is labor management, we need to go down to the Board of Elections and say who put who in office and who actually has a contract with who. Because that Board of Elections defines what the venue is of that court and not the officer under a corporate policy.
Dwight, we only have a couple minutes left, so if there's a point that you really want to make, I think you should make one last point here, and then we're going to have to sign off. And Lydia, give us a call in about an hour at home, and we'll fill you in on some stuff.
Okay. Thanks so much. A riveting show. Can't wait for next week.
Lydia, listen to our sign out, okay?
Okay.
It's worth it.
Wait a minute,
Okay.
I don't have it yet.
Oh, she doesn't quite have it up yet, but we're looking forward to having more private attorney generals like Lydia, because there's a lot of people, Lydia, in Rod's group that have been studying this for years, but they kind of fall apart in court. It's so scary. But you obviously.
Oh, we were tearing it up. You would have been so proud.
I had a traffic stop in Masson, Ohio, and this is before we had the shooting up there. And I went into court, and I would not step across the bar, and I would not step into the jurisdiction. And I basically told the judge, "You don't have jurisdiction to hear this case because there's nobody filed a complaint." And I walked out of the courtroom. So whenever they issued a warrant, I was picked up by SWAT team at McDonald's, hauled in through the back door, and I was brought in on the bar side of the court. And the judge says, "Do you wish to have assistance of counsel?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I want the commander of the Ohio militia because he is under the Constitution for the state of Ohio." And the judge says, "You can't have him because he does not have a license to practice law." I says, "Okay, let me run this by you." Dwight Class and I were just down to Columbus, Ohio. We was down to the Secretary of State's office, and we checked in the Bar Association. And you're not registered to have practice law in the state of Ohio either. So the only one actually in this court that has any authority is me, because I am actually the authorized representative of government, and this is my building.
Yeah.
So that was one reason I got a year in New York County jail and a $100,000 fine for having an opinion against the judge, other than the fact that I did go up to the district court and I filled out a notice of felony against him probably a month before I got kidnapped off the street, and he actually had a notice of felony pending against him under his Navy title, which is Lieutenant J.G. Edward J. Elam, Masson, Ohio. because the day I was supposed to be in his court, I was actually up to the district court filing my complaint against him.
Dwight, we have to sign off now.
Okay.
But we'll have you on for other shows because I know my audience is going to love a lot of the stuff that you've got to say. We'll be in touch, and hopefully we'll do a bunch more shows together. Thank you.
Listen to our sign-up.
I will let you do the filtering, but if you have somebody that wants to email me because my hearing's not very good on the phone.
Okay,
I have to just interrupt everybody right now because it is time for us to say goodbye to the Woodstock Public Access TV station. If you want to hear the end of the show and the closing theme, turn over to 104.1 FM. This is the Woodstock Community Network going off Woodstock Channel 23. And it is midnight, and you are listening to WIOFP Woodstock 104. Go ahead and you can sign off and say your pleasantries.
Actually, can we go a little bit longer?
Sure.
Yeah.
Put the dun-dun on. Let's sign off.
Okay. No. Let's go a little bit longer before we sign off.
Okay.
Dwight, I'll let you get a few more minutes, and then I'll let Lydia get a few more minutes, and then we'll sign off.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Well, whatever you want to talk about, I said Rod and I have been doing this since the 80s. We started doing it. What happened was the guy that actually taught us, who got into the Constitution, he was going back under the oath of office in a bond for the local officials. And it got down to where we went down to the chief of police, and we got probably 26 bonds, but they were all stamped names. Nothing was signed. We got in and checked with the municipal court judge. Her oath of office was given to her by her husband, the prosecutor of the next city. The county judge, her oath of office was given to her by her dad, was the county commissioner. So they're not actually working under their own any rules of court. They're working under something that looks good, that looks maybe convincing if you don't look at it too close.
Right.
Yeah. The local judge here in Kingston swore an oath on a dictionary. That's a fact.
That gives a new definition to the law.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up.
Right.
I got into Manta, and I looked up the justice of the peace court in Smithville, Texas, because I had to go down there. The judge for that court on Manta was listed as the manager. The court itself was listed as a legislative body. So basically, they are making law, and whether they uphold the Constitution is full faith and credit, or if they justify a shooting is full faith and credit, because now that shooting carries over as justification in the other 254 counties in Texas.
How can the judge be a legislative body? Hello.
Well, again, that is they can't say they're a government. That's the issue here. They have to do the mirror image, the 180 image, to justify calling yourself what you're doing, but you can't call yourself a government because only the government was entitled to the federal funding.
But they're taking the federal funding. They're taking the federal funding.
Pardon?
They're taking the federal funding, aren't they?
Well, yeah, that's why they created this fictitious state of. Again, all these offices that they hold that have our tax identification number, these actual government officers, they know they are required to discharge our public debt, and that's the basis of our signature going through them as a intermediary to discharge our debt. I shouldn't have a car bill, I shouldn't have a car payment, and I should not have insurance. I should have the same process that their state trooper has, that their corporate officers have, they're using my money to pay for their vehicles whenever they're supposed to be using my money to pay for mine.
Okay, Lydia, you got any last to throw in here?
I just wanted to thank Rod Class and his brother for sending me the Law Journal articles regarding a private attorney general. They were very good. They were excellent. I would encourage all of your listening audience to look at what Rod's doing on the internet. And to take his class, and it's the things that he's talking about with the private attorney general are well founded in
law.
And, yeah, they're well founded, and they've done amazingly good things. Basically you're a private litigant, and you're pursuing your case, and what you discover is you're not just vindicating your rights, but you're also arguing for the interests of large groups of people. And when you win, you get to pay yourself back for all your time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it, and as it should be, because that's the way to make sure that we keep these people honest. Now, we had no problem speaking up in court. I had 4 people. We tore it up, and not only do I have the audio tape, but the judge really surprised me, because what she did was she put the transcript on the docket too. So, and by the way, Paul and Joe, you wanted to put your paperwork into this case, and I was operating against impossible deadlines. But now that she's scheduled a pre-trial hearing in the middle of May, you have plenty of time to put in to have your voice heard too in this case, and I'll talk about it some more. But I just wanted to thank Rod Class and you, Paula and Joe, and Dwight. Because we took the materials that you gave to us, and we ran with it. And so far, so good, and God bless you and thank you.
But a pre-trial hearing doesn't have an entry of appearance, does it?
Right, we can fix all that. I mean, so far, the judge didn't know what to do. We had like 8 or 9 people in the courtroom, and we've been studying this stuff till our eyes bled. And we were all pretty good. One of us has stopped a foreclosure on a $20 million property. He's driving people so completely nuts, they just offered him like $1 million to go away, and he said no. And the other one of us is a paralegal with over 23 years of experience. He loves Rod Class. He said, I don't know if I can get too blue on radio, but I won't use any profanity. But he did say that he had balls before, but after listening to Rod, now he was even stronger. We went in there and we did pretty good. We can correct some of that.
No, I think they have to correct it. I mean, a pre-trial hearing is a kind of suspect.
We want the trial. We thought that they were going to get rid of us, and we weren't getting to trial. So when she's scheduling a pre-trial hearing, it means holy moly, we might actually get there. But before that, we're probably going to do an evidentiary hearing. I mean, we're going to. It's going to be great.
A pre-trial hearing. If you go under the concept, we're not dealing with a police department. We are, as notice the agent, notice the principal, notice the principal, notice the agent. Your first encounter with a police officer is your pre-trial. Mm-hmm. That's where you set the standard, and that's where you dial 911. You ask him for his badge number. You report a crime or a violation under the Castle Doctrine that you are in fear for your life. You're said to kidnap.
Right.
This is domestic terrorism, and there's enhanced felony weapons charge because this man has a firearm on his hip, is not a police officer, and he's not registered in my county as a private security to handle a weapon like that. And that's what you want on a 911 call. So that is your second administrative hearing once you get into that courtroom. Your claim is against him as a felony versus their claim against you as a misdemeanor.
Okay, on that, we need to sign off, and give us a call in about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, Lydia, and we'll talk some more. And thank you, Dwight. We'll have you on probably a whole bunch more in the future.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Nice, Lydia. Talking
good night,
to you.
Thank you.
My hearing's not very good, but...
Okay, then. Are we going to go to the theme then? Okay, stay tuned for the sign-off theme for Joe and Paula and Pot Talk. And it should be coming up real soon. It should be, but it's not. Huh.
This was the Dragnet theme that Randy was so good at figuring out a couple
That's right,
years
but
ago
we're trying
when we
to,
were on. Well, we can do it another time.
No, it'll... Oh.
I'm growing every
Nope.
morning in my
That's a sign of wrong theme. By the way, we took that judges conference, Dwight, and we
go.
put a lot of songs from the Farm Aid in it.
You've been listening to Pot Talk with Joe Barton. Starring Joe Barton. Also starring Paula Gloria. Be sure to tune in next time litigiously to this very litigious channel for more litigious Pot Talk with Joe Barton, which is a manifestation production. Very litigiously.
always do. Now how was I to know she was with a Russian too?
At this time, WIOFLP Woodstock 104 ends this broadcast day. Woodstock 104 attempts to operate on 104.1 megahertz and oftentimes uses the process of frequently frequency modulated, circularly polarized multiplex stereo for your superior listening, envy, angst, suing, or avoiding litigation pleasure. WIOFLP Woodstock 104 is licensed to Voids of a Feather Media Limited by the Ready Steady Go Federal Communications Commission, a division of the digitally demanding abomination. Voids of a Feather Limited is also licensed to by the Secretary of State of the State of New York to do business as Woodstock 104 for purposes of low-power FM broadcasting at Woodstock, New York. Thank you very much. Our postal mailing address is Woodstock 104, P.O. Box 104, Woodstock, New York 12498. The studio telephone lines are very used tonight at area code 845-679-9104. At this time, we leave the air until high noon tomorrow, when we will return with the Tom Hartman Show and another full day schedule of broadcasting, including the truth about the town board, because we'll be broadcasting gavel to gavel, the town board meeting that takes place at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. We'll be broadcasting it as recorded at 9 o'clock tomorrow evening, actually later tonight. So it is still kind of cool outside, still cool enough that you can't get away with never forgetting to forget to huddle, cuddle, snuggle, and love. Good night from WIOF LP Woodstock 104.
I'm growing marijuana in my yard. Growing marijuana in my yard. Got a little pot to pie spread out all over the lot, 'cause I'm growing marijuana in my yard. gonna smoke some marijuana from my yard. Now the policeman, he wants to talk to me. He says, how you gonna smoke up all that weed? He says, money's what you're in it for. Don't you know we're in a war? I'm gonna haul your ass downtown, please. I said, hey man, what is it to you? How do I infringe on what you do? Well, I beg your pardon if you're offended by my garden. I just can't grow Prozac in my yard. So I grow my own medicine in my yard. I give some to my neighbor for his heart. Share it with my grandma, keeps it from her son. 'Cause we all know that stuff's against the law. Now there's nothing growing in my yard. 'Cause cops call my land and both my cars. Now I have to buy my pot from a teenager in the parking lot who's growing marijuana in his yard. Oh, anyone's growing in their yard. Hey, I can show you how, any harder. Never mind the president, let's overgrow the government and all grow marijuana in our yard. Let's grow some
Hey, here we are again doing another episode of Pot Talk. And once again, we want to remind
You are forced into the big boys commercial-laden gumba. Computers and software are easy. Bandwidth, the last frontier. Unless you have corporate sponsors, 501c3 sponsorship, or community funding, that last part cannot be done. But great music is easy to find and plenty of stoners. I have some amazing bud growing now. Seeds should be around in a month or so. This guy is living offshore. And he goes on in Spain, and he I don't know, should I talk about this since this is Pot Talk? He talks about
It's legal there.
It's legal where he
Right.
is. He goes, I got an argument with someone about Kif, K-I-F. I was in Morocco when everything was legal. I left the week after they outlawed it. He leaves whenever they outlaw, you know. The word Kif is Moroccan. To make Kif, they would take the flowers and chop them up fine on a wooden board. Skimmy the leaf off. They liked the bracts filled with trichome. Then they chopped up black tobacco. I think for them it grows wild. Mixing the two into a fine mix. Then with their Sipsy mind tool, smoke it. Great hit. Well, it seems today Keef is hash in the mass media world. They now say Keef is what we might have known as pollen hash unpressed. They say it is just the trichomes that fall into the bottom part of a 3-part grinder. I argued that trichomes, those great white crystals, are the THC filled glands we called hashish, not Keef. Well, search on the internet and all the top listings for Keef show they are the trichomes that drop to the bottom of grinders. No more about Keef from the riff. Words used to have meanings, and I think losing the history of this word and allowing people to think they have Keef instead of pollen hash, well, off we go. Best to you. So he's all about protecting legacy. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Who we were, talking to about this issue with the
trying to get
the TV studio. Do you have any comments, Randy? On
Well, only what I'm led to believe is that I'm pretty upset about the way the new TV studio at the community center is set up, because it really is the old TV studio. There is not even a full wall of green screen. The green screen area is exactly the same size as it was in the other more narrow room, and the rest of the wall is just left white. The reason for that is because I believe it's the same kind of charcoal curtain that they pull over it. And originally, when
you to many of our brothers and sisters are sitting in jail for marijuana, when the rich fat cats now have licenses that can sell marijuana as much as they want and not go to jail because they have political connections and lots of money. This shows that we have a two-tier system in America. The rich and powerful that can do anything they want, and the rest of us that get screwed and sent to jail. Now that I've made that point, all you people run out and vote for those clowns. Wave your flag, wave it high, say how free you think we are, Anyway, Paula wants to read some stuff.
Okay, can you hear me? We were just reading about the Woodstock TV studio getting back up again, and I've written to the Woodstock Times, and I've talked about it on numerous occasions, and as Joe says, for 3 years we've pleaded before the board. And this is a letter that we got from the producers saying that it's now open for all types of programming. There's going to be a Roland V4EX machine in there that's supposed to be better. And then
it's better junk, folks.
And then it says, here's one interesting sentence from Rich Spool. In the near future, you will be able to make a digital file of your program for quick editing and YouTube use. And then he goes, because of the Ustream commercials, we are suspending the streaming until a solution can be found. Well, this is a really big deal. Now, I had written an email to Jesse Jones, and to protect myself, I CC'd it to Brian Hollander, to Rich Spool, because I don't want him out of the loop, and to Rick Siegel, who's an expert overseas whom we trust a lot. And I said, hi, Jesse. Right now, Joe, Jay, and I are watching the ceremonies from the ashram in which I spent 4 years. I was there during 9/11, and I gave the Ustream to it. As you can see from this stream, which Rich Spool indicated we would be on again, the commercials are very disruptive. Joe would like to talk to you about seeing if you can deliver a stream that is non-commercial, since public access is commercial-free on cable and should be on the World Wide Web. In the past, when we were on the web, in the middle of our show, a commercial would come on, which would disrupt the point that we were trying to make, and in most cases, the commercials seemed to be timed during the high point of our shows, blotting out the power of our message. Same thing in this ashram stream. It was blotting out really beautiful mantras. Joe has talked with other producers, and they all agree on this point. So if you truly want to be of assistance, and you are not just talk, deliver for the producers a non-commercial site on the World Wide Web. And good luck dealing with Rich Spool. We're not talking behind Rich's back. I've CC'd him. Who doesn't consult with any of the producers when he sets up equipment. When Rich set up the studio, he didn't ask any producers where would be the easiest place for equipment to be located so that it would be user-friendly. In Joe's opinion, Rick believes his technical skills are so advanced that he doesn't have to ask any of the producers what they would like, nor does he care, Joe and Paula. Now, then I wrote to Rick Siegel to ask him about how do we set up something. He goes, about broadcasting.
Wait, let me just jump in. Now, Rick Rick Siegel had this equipment and was broadcasting and really is probably a real authority on this. I would like to go ahead, but now read it.
Don't take the wind out of it because he's setting it up nice. About broadcasting, well, OnlineTV.com was doing what you wanted from 1996 to 2002 when I stopped doing it. I could not afford it anymore. It was $500 a month short of being in the black, but I did not have $500 anymore per month to keep it live. In 2001, I was able to do live broadcast using line-of-sight uplinks to the Twin Towers and putting it out over the Internet. The thing is, the server is important, not the broadcast point. All you need to broadcast is software, computer, and an Internet connection of at least 300 kbs. The server needs whatever it needs. That means it needs enough to feed as many viewers as it has. I had 45 T1 lines and could accommodate huge audiences. I sold memberships at $3.95 a month, all-you-can-eat concerts every night. As you may or may not know or remember, I had bad PTSD from 9/11. Besides that, my investors went down with the towers. The $10 million business plan went too, because the, quote, internet bubble, end quote, burst. I left and never came back. While I was thinking that the time is finally here for what I was already doing, I am just not so happy to think about suiting up for a bull like this. So for a broadcast, until you do not need much, for a broadcast unit, you do not need much. It is the hosting and server that is important for getting the signal out to the consumer. And then I answered again, Dear Rick, in reference to what you say below, what do we need as far as a server so our message can go viral and non-commercial? If we can get the 300 KB uplink, right? How do we get unlimited bandwidth, which should be a right for public access, where the little guy can be free of interference from the big corporations? Can we get a powerful computer that can act as a server, or do we need some special equipment? Could you send us a list of what exactly we would need to pull this off? Okay, then he answers, okay, hi Joe, love your shows. I think it is a bit more complicated than you understand at the moment. Keep this for reference. You have to break down the flow of data, which in this case is video-audio broadcast. First, we have to get a signal out. That can be remote or local, but a connection must be made to a computer that will probably relate to a central broadcast server, camera or DVD, whatever, to a computer that encodes for broadcast. At the same time, you should record locally on that computer for archive. So the computer should be strong. If you use a laptop, there's a good chance it will not keep up with record to disk and sending out to the central computer. Now, central computer. Something has to catch it and forward it on. Will it be hooked to the 100M backbone? Will it serve direct to users? That would be your audience. How many streams would you expect? This is the big money issue, bandwidth, it costs. That is why sites like Netflix and the providers fight over those costs. The computers to do this are not costly. It is make the part that goes to the end user. You can stream in with a signal, and that is not so costly. What is costly is sending that out again to many. That means powerful computers with large bandwidth. I had my servers on site at the clubs to do live stuff. They took in the feed from the camera, encoded, saved, and sent the live data to bigger servers on the main trunk feed. I had 100M, and it could serve 1,000 high-quality streams simultaneous, so up to 10,000 could watch reasonably. I had that daily. You have to rent out rack space at the hubs, and if you are lucky, you can get on without meter rates and just pay the big package. At the time, it was $1,400 a month for unmetered connection. But back then, in capitals, no one was doing this. They had no idea what I was doing. In a bright new day, you would get the server at the community center and have them give you the connectivity free. Of course, free is used loosely, as it is a cost that will be borne by someone or everyone in the end. I was of the impression that Paula was using her 501c3 to get funding for such adventures? ? No, I let it go, but... So, my friend, think about which parts of the program you want your energy into. All of it can be done or part of it. If you want to rid commercials, then someone has to fund that bandwidth, or